And we're back again, my friends, for another conversation with legendary strength coach, according to Men's Health Magazine and many others, Daniel John. Cheers, Dan. Drinking our
And a
coffee
very
here. Always
cheerful
good to
morning
see
to
you.
you. Let's
Mhm.
nod coffee mugs to each other and
Have a sip. Yeah. Mm.
ah, mm,
Nothing like there's a few things in life like that first sip of coffee in the morning. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it's true
Mhm.
that. Yeah, yeah. I used to make the coffee the night before, but now I've moved to a new system where I wake up and turn it on. It's. I mean, I don't, folks. This is early. It's. I'm not. I used to have the automatic timer go off. Now I turn it on.
Wow.
I don't know where this is heading, Pat, but it's pretty exciting. I'll
Wow.
let the
Yeah.
research speak
I
for
did. I
itself.
didn't expect such a bombshell this early in the morning, Dan.
Well, it's a life changer for me, and we'll just see how it goes.
Very good. So, hey, we had a ton of fun the past 2 weeks doing that series on everything people need to know to get started with kettlebells.
Yeah,
I would just encourage people to go back and check that out because we put together a huge page of resources of the 2 podcasts we did and some of your videos and some of my videos. So that's over at chroniclesofstrength.com. I want to thank Dan for giving us such great guidance there. And it's not just for people who are starting with kettlebells. I would say if you're a coach or you just have
oh yes,
friends or anybody else who's interested in kettlebells, I think you'll probably get a lot out of it.
I think so. It's weird how many little drills I've had to come up with. It seems the longer you teach, the more new problems appear.
Mm.
Someone will overemphasize something, and the next thing you have to do is come up with a drill to deal with whatever that. Someone will have a video or say something, and especially in kettlebells, and the next thing you know, everyone's doing juggling razor blades while swinging a kettlebell.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, coaching does at times force you to be creative, but every once in a while, a great idea sticks, and we
Yep.
tried to share some of those in those episodes. Dan, one thing I wanted to start chatting about today because it came up from a number of people is just the general question of, okay, when do I go from one kettlebell to 2 kettlebells? Or maybe we could even phrase it like this, since you like to talk about killer apps. What would the benefits or the killer app be of double kettlebell training versus single kettlebell training?
Well,
How do you
I would just
differentiate
say
between the
it's the double kettlebell front squat.
two?
To me, there's a magic in that movement. There's so much load way out in front of you that it becomes that Zercher squat feeling. That's a squat, folks. You put, and you better pad up your elbows, but you lift, you do your squat or your deadlift, called a spider deadlift, with the weight in the crooks of your elbows, which and good luck on that if you've done that untrained. You get that Zercher feeling that it's like doing a heavy bag carry feeling. And so when for every rep with a double kettlebell front squat, you're getting a ton of bang for your buck, and what I would call the anaconda muscles. You can call them the core, the column, but you know it when you do it with the double kettlebell. I also am a big fan, of course, of the farmer walk and the double press,
Mm.
but it is the top of the mountain for me would be the darn front squat. Okay.
Yeah, no, I certainly am going to be the last person to disagree with that. I say, yeah, the double press, the double. I love the double clean and press. Those two movements together I've always just fancied that.
Well, the armor building workout where
Mhm.
you do the cleans, you do the press, you do the front squats. That my knock on doubles is I don't believe in double snatches. I don't trust people to do them right in any level of fatigue.
Mhm.
Um, and then any circus trick with doubles, I don't like double overhead kettlebell walks. I don't trust those.
Sure.
Um, but it's not, and it's just because when you have two loads over your head, if something goes wrong, it could go wrong really badly.
I
It's
agree.
like,
There's a lot I want to talk about there, Dan. A lot of good stuff. But for the double snatch, it's one of those things like, yeah, I'll play around with it here or there, but it's never been like a regular fixture of either my programming or anybody else's because it's kind of hard to justify, right? Like if you want to do
right,
like get a lot of weight overhead, then we just go to the barbell snatch,
Slide
right?
over to the barbell. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you just want like the explosive repetitive hinge movements, well, you're probably going to get everything you need from the double swing and the double clean, or even just a single kettlebell swing. So it's like, yeah, the marginal benefits you might get from the double kettlebell snatch in the context of how you would use it to the increased risk of things going wrong, because it is a trickier exercise. It just makes it hard to justify, right?
Exactly. So the question is when you would transit. I do wish, and I've told you this before, I wish we only had 3 kettlebells still, the 16, the 24, and the 32. I wish that's all we had.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing about that, and gentle female listeners, well, maybe the 8, the 8, 12, 16, and maybe in other cases, 12, 16, 20, 24. The nice thing about that was if you couldn't press the 32, well, you just kept practicing with the 24 and then you do drills with the 32, and then but once it started having all those minor divisions, we slid over into the issues with both dumbbell training and machine training, where you have so many options in load that you sort of miss mastering a certain weight before you move up.
Right.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we've talked about this before. Sometimes being restricted in one way can force you to be more creative and productive in others. So, okay, I'm restricted to this weight. How do I get stronger with it? Well, now we have to start thinking about the other aspects of programming that we should be thinking about already, but sometimes we can overlook because we have so much malleability in one variable, say intensity, that we don't really ever figure out or master variables such as frequency or volume or density. So when you fix
exercise selection,
or
finding a
exercise
harder
selection,
way
right?
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you fix one, and I think this is just a good creative exercise. Like even if you have a bunch of kettlebells, give yourself the challenge, either as a user or a coach. Okay, I'm going to fix this variable, and how do I still get the results I want as efficiently as possible with the tools that I still have available to me? How do I get creative with exercise selection, or how am I going to adjust the frequency or volume or whatever? You'll be a better coach because of that.
Well, something we talked about years ago, if you just had a 16 kilo bell, which was interesting because, the 16 kilo bell, when I first look at it, is not going to challenge me because, I'm legendary strength coach Dan John.
Sure.
And he says that tongue in cheek. But, and if you're doing
Men's Health magazine says it.
But if you do 200 snatches with the 16, that's going to be a good solid heart pumper. Mm-hmm. If you decide to practice pressing on one foot with the 16 and then slide from the standard press to the waiter press to the bottoms up press, standing on the left foot and doing presses with the right hand is going to teach you, it's going to teach you as much about core stability as a double kettlebell front squat. You're going to learn some lessons. Yeah. I'm not sure all the lessons are going to be $1 billion lessons, but there's going to be value there long term. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I actually pioneered a single bell workout. In fact, I can remember very well being with somebody down in Miami, teaching them this whole little method. And it was just, and the idea was the business owner wanted kind of wanted a hot yoga option for kettlebells. So there was, when you walked in, there was a 10 kilo bell and a 20 kilo bell, pick one. And then the entire workout was with a single bell on one mat. And so the bell would be here for this, it'd be there for that. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a fun mental thing for me. So, at the end of the workout, and the workout was always the exact same. It never went anywhere. Interesting, because after I did it twice, I realized how, what's the word I'm looking for? Boring. It was, but the idea was excellent. I thought, here's a bell. Here is a group of 70 people in a small room. They all have a mat space. Go. And the intellectual exercise, I thought, had great value.
Yeah, I like that. That's very cool. Dan, would you mind if let's circle back real quick to armor building, because it's a fan favorite and it's something I want to explore a little bit more. So 2 things I want to ask you. One, what was the genesis of it? Where did it come from? Maybe explain what it is for people who are unfamiliar. And then two, if you had to have Dan John's armor building program, just very simple,
Oh,
bare
yeah, sure.
bones,
Easy.
what would that look like? Yeah, take us through it.
Well, we were having a problem with the RKC. What do we call it? The finisher, the grad
The
workout,
grad
whatever.
workout. That's right.
And they kept trying different things, and the problem was the one time they did it where they had everybody just go back and forth on the field. You marched 10 paces and you did 10 swings, and then you marched 10 paces and you did presses, and the people couldn't press. They were tapped out. And then they tried to do the seesaw walk press. That's where as you walk, you alternate presses, and that of course was not good. And
Yeah, I actually think that was my grad workout.
yeah,
We
oh
had
yeah,
some type of walking seesaw press and then a bunch of snatches. I forget the details, but it was something like that.
and it just went on forever, and it was just
Mhm.
so. Pavel asked me to come up with a finisher, and the idea was to have the press in it, but easily slid up, or actually in most cases down. So I came up with a very simple Fibonacci number sequence: double kettlebells, so 2 cleans, 1 press, 3 front squats. And if your press starts to go, you just slide to 2 cleans, 3 front squats, because you can keep front squatting. Then, and it's I go, you go. So Patrick and I are partners, and Patrick does his 2-3-1. I do my pardon me,
2-1-3.
2-1-3. I'm sorry.
It's tough. I have to think about it all the time.
Yeah. And then I do my 2-1-3, and then we just go, I go, you go. And it works out to a little bit more than around a minute, just a little bit more though.
Mhm.
And what happens quickly within about 10 minutes is that it works out to almost exactly around a minute, because the front squat slows our I go, you go down.
Mhm.
So when I first go for the first round, the front squat goes 1, 2, 3. Minute 9, the front squat goes 1, and it just slows everything, which is where I want. I want about every 30 seconds that we both do it in a minute. When we program it, I recommend something a little different. So week 1, I would recommend doing it Monday and Friday, week 2, Wednesday, week 3, Monday and Friday, week 4, Wednesday. So
Real quick, Dan, and for people who might be unfamiliar with just the term armor building, what do you mean by that?
oh,
Mhm.
that's a phrase I've been using for decades about I'll tell you the original story. In fact, I have the video in my basement.
Perfect.
In Thanksgiving Day, 1974, I played my last high school football game, and we played at South City High. We only played at nights, 7 o'clock, 7:30 kickoff. Okay, and then we played the game, and then we'd go to this pizza parlor, and then I used to get raspberry sherbet at the place next door, and we would just have a nice time, and I'd go home, and I was in bed, say, by midnight, 11:30 midnight. Well, here's an interesting thing. So Thanksgiving 1974, I go play at the game. I think the game kicks off at 11. Get home, say 3, 4 o'clock. Dinner's at 6. And about 7 o'clock, I start to notice this very strange feeling in my forearms, because they're killing me. What I had never realized, that in games, I was throwing my forearms around at people's heads, helmets, as often as I physically could,
Mhm.
and my arms were killing me. And then we had this conversation during wrestling season, how a lot of us would get bloody noses the first week or so of wrestling, and then miraculously they never bled again. And we also noticed the first week or 2 of wrestling that your skin acted weird, and then after about 2 weeks, and then I heard other people talk about in the martial arts that canvas mats that you guys use would rip up the new people, but had no impact on the people been around.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And so it took me a while to figure this out, but it became one of my 3 stones: arrow, anaconda, and armor. And armor is literally your skin, and which is your largest organ. So when you're getting hit by those bells for those 2 cleans, and then you do the press, and then you do those front squats, you are preparing yourself for a football game. You're preparing yourself for wrestling. You are building up the armor. And it sounds weird to say that out loud. Even now it does. But people who have done it tend to go, oh, I know what you mean. And after a week or two of armor building in with that workout, the ABC complex, the 2-1-3, people begin to give me some feedback like, okay, at first I thought it was silly, but now I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I would hate to call it calluses, like you get on your hands, but there is a bit of callousy.
Yeah. No. Yeah, no, thank you. That's good. I wanted to bring that out just because I think that background is helpful and interesting. And there's definitely a real world kind of functional strength that you get from it as well, and a sort of a resiliency too. Not just like in terms of endurance, but just kind of making yourself a little bit harder to move.
Right. And if this was what your American football program or rugby team did for training, I mean, it'd be boring as hell after a few workouts, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty good program. It feels like what happens in collision sports.
Right. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the programming now and the details of how you would spell this out for somebody who wants to turn it more into a thing.
Okay, sure. Well, I would suggest that, like I said, 2 days a week, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week. Before you get to it, I would, you should probably have, if you're a kettlebell only person, the armor building days would be good days to do, like that would be a good Turkish get up day. As let's say your workout goes for 45 minutes to an hour, this would be a good day to spend some extra quality time on the Turkish get up, on any exercise that you don't, that you might not be practicing enough. This would be a good day to do in the warm up. This would be a good day to do the half kneeling press. This is a good day to practice a lot of things. So maybe the first third or maybe even a little bit longer of the workout period, dedicate it to those more practice style movements, the Turkish get up, the half kneeling, and then give yourself a block.
And what are you thinking intensity wise for that? Like,
that would just be practice.
Just like a 16 kilogram, something like
16K, and this would be a good day to do 10 left, 10 right. That kind of that.
Got
it.
If
that's something you like to do, you don't want to. You want to do some things, but you don't. You want to leave it for the armor building. If you've never done it before, I would say try a 10-minute, every minute on the minute style. So every time the sweep hits the 12, or every 60 seconds, do a round, and just kind of shake it off after. If you have a partner, you go is great. You probably will find that the top end of it is 15 to 20 minutes for most people. Maybe occasionally, and this would be for me like we're talking months, 3 or 4 months, do a longer session. But you're going to find that after once you start sneaking up into 10, 15 minutes, just the amount of squatting you're doing, it's going to impact what you're doing the rest of the week,
Yeah.
So if you go for an hour on this, 60 times 3,
I've never done it for an hour.
That's a lot of front squats. Yeah. So maybe on that first Monday you do it, pick something as simple as 10 minutes, just keep it a nice round number. That's going to be 10 rounds. That's going to get you 10 presses and 30 squats. Gentlemen, you should probably use a 24, but slide down to the 20s or the 16s. The next time, the following Friday, your mileage may vary on this, but if you did it 10 minutes, go to 15. The following Wednesday, this might be, since you're only doing it one time that week, that might be the fun day to do the longer one. Sure. So Monday and Friday workouts, make those both light, medium, make the Wednesday, that would be the focused workout. And really, if you want to play around, you can go heavier loads, which is always, it's always, what do you mean by that? It's always a hard thing. If you and I were doing it, we decided to go to 32s or 28s, that is going to be so much harder of a hit than a 20 and 24.
Right.
That, we might have said 40 minutes, but it would just be very ugly after a while. But you can play with heavier loads, but I would play with longer time, and maybe even try a lighter load, 20-minute run, 25-minute, and just, it's going to be a trifle boring after about minute 12, but just it's only once every 2 weeks.
Put on a podcast, put on a Pat Flynn show or Dan John podcast.
Yeah.
Be fine.
So that's how I recommend sticking armor building into most people's training.
That's really cool. I like that. I'm not sure if you have that written up, Dan, but here's an idea, because I wanted to get together another gift for the listeners who have shared and reviewed the show. But if you don't have it written up, maybe I could just sketch something up like that on paper.
I love it.
Your blessing, and then for those who are interested, maybe we could give it out to the gentle listeners.
Well, and the nice thing about people are going to raise their hand and say, "What do you do on the middle Wednesday? What do you do on the Monday and Friday if you're training 3 days a week?" Those other workouts, I would suggest being more traditional, like if you're going to do something if you're going to do armor building on the Monday, Friday, the other workouts that week should be like, that would be a good day to do the pressing. That would be a good day to do the swings. Oh, there you go, right there. The swing press workouts there. There you go. Perfect. Swing press on those other days.
Love it. Okay, you know what I'll do? I will just draft something up, and then gentle listeners, we always like to give a thank you for being a listener and for reviewing and subscribing the show. So if you ping me, Pat Flynn at chroniclesofstrength.com, just put the subject line podcast review. If you reviewed the show previously, just send in your old review. If you haven't, it really helps the show. The reviews really do help the show. So consider leaving a review, sending it in, and we'll send you the written up program for you to.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
So Dan, before we head to questions, we haven't taken questions in a few weeks. What's going on in your training right now? What have you been experimenting with?
Well, as I think I told you, I shifted over to 3 days a week of buns and guns with presses thrown in. I'm trying to do a little extra. Yeah, you know what? We're having a great conversation over at the Q&A forum at Dave Draper. And, the longer I'm in this game, the more I think there's some new research out that's really quite interesting on Olympic lifting, and specifically just the Olympic snatch and walking. And it's kind of interesting because there's your perfect workout, Patrick. Squat, snatch, and go for walks. There, I just said it. There you go. And we're having this conversation about how the Olympic lifts build up bone density better than anything they've ever tried, including powerlifting. And I'm wondering if it's the ballistic hit of the movements.
I think that's a tenable hypothesis, Dan.
Yeah, we know that bone density demands a level of randomness to make it increase in a positive direction. Now you can get if you do the same movement over and over and over again for, like you work in a factory for 60 years, you're going to go in the wrong direction. And so one of the things that's been discussed is, after a certain age, it's time to bodybuild. And I hate to be that guy, but I'm after that certain age, so
right.
I have to spend more time on my buns and guns. Tuesday's the heavy ruck day. Thursday's tonic Thursday with all the original strength. What I'm doing now with the buns and guns is I'm doing a lot of volume on the ground, and then going really hard, really heavy on the movements. So when I'm on the ground, I put the glute loop on and I do hip thrusts and clamshells. Okay.
Yep.
And I do a variety of clamshells. And then when I move over to the hip thrust machine, yesterday I did that really difficult one set. We strap up 3 different straps on you, bands. We put the glute loop on you. We have the ab tense loop on you. And you just sit down there by yourself and you go to exhaustion on 3 bands. We pull a band off. You go to exhaustion on 2. We pull a band off. You go, it doesn't take long now. Exhaustion. We take that band off. So you're doing them with no load. And it's just funny to watch someone just.
I love it.
Oh no, this hurts so bad. And then we mix, after that, we just do a couple rounds of a deadlift variation, superset with the ab wheel, which I'm a big fan of doing.
Right. Well, what's really cool about the band thing there is, like, you get, it's fun. It's obviously very stimulating, but like, it's super low risk, right?
Exactly. And the other thing is, it's only one set. And so you're able to just go.
Right.
But you're right. I've experimented with using weights on the hip thrust, and I just personally don't like it. And Brett Contreras and I consider Brett a good friend, and he loves the loaded with barbells, and I just don't. And
Yeah, I'm with you. I've just never gotten into it.
I'm not a bad person. I just don't like load in that particular area of my body, and we're not going to go into great detail why.
That's right.
I just not a big fan of it. So,
Mhm.
but I get it. And then yesterday we did we scratched off Art Devaney's hierarchical and did squats
Mhm.
and presses, which interesting because it takes only about a minute or two. So it gave me a lot more time to work my guns and my buns. So there you go.
Perfect. Yeah. Very
Yeah,
cool. Well, always good to hear
but I do have
what
some bad news.
oh no, what's that?
My trivia team, we took third place last night,
Oh, Dan.
and here's the thing: we would have won. I said Bangladesh, and my group argued me down to Kashmir, and Bangladesh was the right
Of course.
answer.
I mean, what do you do at that point? How do you reconcile
And
with
it
such
cost us
barbarians?
big time. I'm not complaining, but Monday night is we go over to a place called the Ice House, and the owner, Dave Morris, great man, is on our team. My daughters are on my team, and it is just a delightful time,
Mhm.
absolutely delightful time. So a big shout out. Um, it's the nice thing. I don't know how it is in the rest of the United States, but here in Utah, one of the safest places you can be for COVID is bars. Like my daughter, who's about to have a baby, she calls little kids rats, and so there's no rats in Utah bars. She's a delightful young thing, and the precautions are really high. And so it's interesting because here in the height of COVID, the safest place to be in Utah is a bar.
Well, yeah, glad to hear you're just I mean, we've talked about how important community is
Oh,
and just
my
it's sometimes Dan, I know we've talked about this a lot, but it's true. It's sometimes those simplest things can be the things that just that last with you throughout your entire life. Those simple nights out, just doing
yeah.
trivia. And you probably don't ever remember the questions, but you remember the people, the
You,
experience, all that.
uh, I've told my daughters many times. You go out to a restaurant and there's three things: food, service, people. One of the three is great. The other two is awful. What do you pick? And they correctly picked people. Oh, one other thing I did yesterday is I went out to one of the schools and I did a workshop on theology. It was kind of fun.
Nice.
I did some models of theology. I'm a big believer as a teacher that even if you don't share, I always shared mine, but you should always be able to fall back mentally on certain things. And for me, I always like quadrants, and I like flow charts. If you look at my movement matrix, push, so you got push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded, carry on the far left, and then isometrics, grinds, ballistics, and then combinations. For me, the reason I teach that is that if I get to a place that doesn't have the equipment, I already have built in a model of which direction to go with no matter what I have.
Mm.
And I'm a big, so with quadrants, I love that little one from Stu McGill. Um, move, uh, fit and move, and a not fit and not move. It's a little quadrant. If you're fit and you move well, get out there and compete. If
Mhm.
you're not fit, get in shape. If you don't move well, do your corrective work. And if you're not in shape and you can't move well, that's a whole other conversation. But let's take care of that. And I just love that because I love this line: if you're fit and you move well, get out there.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah, it's
That's
great.
and I love that kind of fallback mentality. Whereas if somebody says to me, "Yeah, coach, I don't know if Pat Flynn can play," and well, what's the problem? Well, he kind of, I look at him. Well, if he's fit and he moves well, get him out there.
Mhm.
Put, slap a helmet on and get on out there. So that was fun. I enjoyed that a lot. I'd forgotten how much systematic theology influences my coaching.
Yeah, well, we've talked about that before, and if people aren't familiar, neither of us have our academic backgrounds in fitness,
Yeah.
right? And we've argued that that's actually been very helpful because you can, being a good generalist and reaching new insights often means pulling things that you understand in one area and seeing if they can apply in another area. And theology is great, and especially systematic theology. Because sometimes the question that came in the podcast not too long ago is what's the difference between philosophy and theology? And one difference is that, philosophy tries to examine all assumptions, where theology, you start from a given, right? Okay, here's the
You
given.
start from a given.
And now let's see if we can work out its coherence and its implications. And it's very rigorous, right? But we
Yeah.
start from some particular given. And that's a fantastic. There's a lot of stuff that could be applied just from that into many other fields, right?
Well, yeah, and I think about theodicy, trying to teach kids, especially about why do bad things happen to good people and why do good things happen to bad people. And if you start with the given, there is one God, it is a whole lifetime search. If you're a polytheist and Loci doesn't like you, it's a very simple
Right.
answer.
It's
Loci,
it, right. But it's funny because this is where Augustine came in very helpful because he was influenced by Manichaeism beforehand, which
yeah,
you have the warring gods, and superficially it seems to take care of it, but he realized actually substantially it's not a good answer because there's an asymmetry between the good and the evil, and evil was a privation. So that actually brought him to monotheism. So it was a superficial. The first model he held was superficially satisfying but deeply unsatisfying,
that's
and that
interesting.
and
Yeah.
that caused him to switch the models, and eventually he converted. But it was through trying to wrestle with evil specifically. Uh-huh.
And it's interesting in our field of fitness. There, I can think of a lot of people who took the easy answers, and I'm not moralizing, gentle listen, I'm just saying, but a lot of my buddies went really heavy into PEDs. And the problem is, once they hit the wall, it was really hard for them to find, every athlete hits a wall. The discus just doesn't want to go any farther, the shot, the load, whatever. And that is the great I'm referencing the work of George Leonard and many others right now. And that, of course, is the key to mastery, is what do you do when you hit the plateau?
That's a really interesting. I like that a lot, Dan. Drawing it to St. Augustine is okay. There might be something that is superficially easy or superficially appealing, but it might actually give you troubles deep down, right? There might not be like a deep sustainability there. However, there might be something else that is superficially difficult, right? And going back to monotheism, like one God, all good, and yet there's evil everywhere. Okay, that's superficially in a lot of tension, right?
Right.
But then you drive it through, as Augustine and all these great thinkers
Yeah.
have, and they realize this is the only one that can actually give you like a deeper concord, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there. And I see the link that you're drawing between other areas of life where people might go for what seems to be the superficial and the easy thing, but it frustrates the long-term deep success. Whereas you take the thing that might be superficially off-putting, right? But that's going to lead to the longer term sustainability.
If I may use an example, I mean, again, I have no issues with ephedrine. This is not moral theology. Okay, folks, I do what you want. But when ephedrine was very popular back, it'd be 20 years now. This guy I knew who worked at this nutrition company talked about it when they banned ephedrine from this company. This customer came in and he didn't recognize the customer because the customer had probably put on 60 pounds in the month or two since ephedrine was banned.
Mhm.
And the thing about ephedrine is that, well, it's not good for men at all. If they if you want performance in a certain area of life, don't take ephedrine.
When was
Uh,
that? When was that banned? Because
it's got to be early. It's got to be the early aughts,
okay.
probably one or two or something. It's got to be around there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting is that, well, my point is a lot of people were taking ephedrine to lean out. And boy, I mean, obviously, they were doing, it was called the stack. You drink coffee, you take an aspirin, and you take ephedrine. And then another one that was even more brutal. It's going to be interesting when I add to it: caffeine, aspirin, ephedrine, and grapefruit juice or grapefruit, because it stops the down regulating. And holy cow! I mean, people were making. There was also a drug right before it called fen-phen. And I had a number of people I knew were taking this. Of course, it led to massive heart issues. So
I mean, I would
my point,
immediately be in convulsions if I took something like that.
but the thing is that, and again, this isn't me ripping on it. So if you decide to make taking this pill several times a day to be your fat loss strategy, that's great until it gets banned. It's great until you run out. It's great until your heart palpates or whatever the word is. You
Palpitates.
know, yeah, until your heart starts to shudder. And then it's plan B time. And boy, it's plan B harder sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
The plateau, and you said this, in fact, I'm quoting you in a workshop next Saturday. The
Oh, good. So
plateau is the new PR.
somebody's going to quote me aside from myself. That's
Yeah.
great news.
But the plateau is really, if those of you interested in mastery, you need to learn to fall in love with the plateau, because the plateau is what is the time before the next great leap or insight or whatever. And that's why I think it took me a while as a teacher to understand that sometimes when a kid is grappling with it, stop trying to fix it, let them grapple. Sometimes when you're coaching a sport, you just hit this wall where sometimes your athletes, we can't fix it. And the correct answer is, okay, we can't fix it. Okay, let's go do something else for a while. And literally the kid walking down the hallway a month later, he'll go, oh, I got it. Okay.
Boom.
And
Yeah.
it gets
Sometimes it
fixed.
just takes a bit, right?
And
Mm-hmm.
it just fixes itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great stuff, Dan. Really enjoyed that. Appreciate you sharing those experiences
Sure.
and insights as
Well,
always.
you bet. You bet.
Shall we turn to some questions now?
I think we should turn to some questions.
All right. First one comes from gentle listener, Mike Friedlander.
Mike, you're just seriously, did you guys go off these mics? It's constant mic.
It's just Mike Fest up in here.
I mean,
So, all right. Mike wants to know the compatibility between easy strength and swing challenges. So here we go. He says, would a previous swing challenge, would that qualify or be compatible with Dan John's easy strength for fat loss, where he calls for 45 minutes or so of light cardio? So he wants to know, could you put in those swings? I guess whether you're doing 300 swings or 10,000 swings, could that be something you do in conjunction with your easy strength or as part of your easy strength for fat loss program, Dan?
Well, my only concern, Mike, and it's actually, I like what you're saying here. Well, there'd be two things. I mean, with can you get the swings done in 45 minutes? But you would be getting away from the concept of easy strength for fat loss, where you're walking with the body. Having said that, I think I haven't done it, Mike, but I can see some very interesting wisdom here. So you go into the gym, you do your 10 ab wheels, you do a set of press or two, you do a pull up. See, because you're doing swings, you're not going to really need to do much more, right? Maybe a Turkish get up or two if you know how. You really don't need that. And then the 10,000 swings, that would be a different thing. You can't hinge on it. You might want to do some squats before you do the 10,000, do the 500 swings. But Mike, I'm spitballing here because it's an interesting idea. But easy strength is the classic park bench workout, and the 10,000 swing challenge is a classic bus bench. So you expect results from it. Combining these two is going to be some interesting water. If you wouldn't mind, Mike, I'd like you to read up on easy strength for fat loss. Get the basics of what you're thinking of, reps and sets, the ab wheel, the press, pull up, maybe some goblet squats, and really that's it. Then the 10,000 swing challenge, and just then come in tomorrow and ab wheel, press, pull up, goblet squat, 10,000 swing, and do that for 20 days. It'd be interesting to see how that works out for your press strength. I wouldn't worry about your goblet squat strength at all, and to see if it impacted your pull up. It'd be interesting. I don't have any more to.
There you go. Well, an invitation to be a guinea pig there. So
Yes.
permission to go ahead and report back, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Good.
Mike, I got to tell you, it's an interesting idea, and my favorite thing about having these conversations is the synergy that comes from it. when I heard Pat read it out loud, I was like, oh yeah, that's very logical. And I never once ever thought of it.
Yeah, let it be known that you, the gentle listeners, often help us and provide us with a lot of
Yeah.
value as well. The questions, the feedbacks, all of it. So we're learning here too. All right, next one comes from gentle listener Richard Porter. We'll give good old Richard a shout out.
Hey
Uh,
Porter. Hey Porter.
and gentle Richard here wants to know, when I do shoulder presses, sometimes I feel a decent amount of pressure in my hips, pelvis, sacrum area, usually on my left side, which is my weaker side. Sometimes it's quite sore after the fact. I did some yesterday and I'm basically out of commission with severe pain in and around my sacrum. Do you see this often? What could I be doing wrong? The weight is manageable, 24 kilograms, but obviously heavy enough to do harm if my form is off. So Dan, have you ever heard of this before? Have you seen this? What can we offer
Well,
Richard
this
here?
is, to me, this is when you go see my friend Mike, who's he's a physical therapist. It, to me, and I don't remember what the letters are, but he uses it's the S, whatever it is. It's that thing where they test you on standing, you stand on one foot, you stand on this, they test everything. I would be very interested, Richard, to see if it's, I mean, here's the problem. This could be an issue with a broken toe that has slid up to the ankle, which is slid up to the knee, which is slid up to the hip. This could be a broken finger that made you hold your wrist funny. To me, when you have an issue like this that doesn't fit perfectly, makes me think that there's, so, many people say if your knee hurts, you go south to the ankle and you go north to the hip. And I think there's some value to that. But I would like you to get in a nice 1 hour session with a physio or one of these guys and girls, and just get a chance to see if it's something very simple. It just doesn't seem like pressing shouldn't hurt your hip that much, but it does. So there's an issue somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And, I wish we could be more helpful, especially on these kind of injury related questions. But again, one, I'm not a physical therapist and I don't pretend to be on the podcast. But even if we were, for some things, you just got to be in person. You got to get the assessments done.
Yeah. And
Right.
honestly, it could be, and I mean this, Patrick, I mean, you stub a toe and your shoulder hurts next week because you've compromised your work, your training.
Well, one thing, good physical therapist, strength coach friend of mine said a while back, he's like, if there's one thing that I've learned in all my schooling about the human body, it's that everything is connected and everything matters.
Wow, that's money. That's money. Yeah, absolutely. Everything's connected. Everything's connected. Okay.
And everything matters. That's right. And he would always be insistent that, he's like, it's never just a toe problem or a shoulder problem. It's a body problem, right?
Right.
Because of that reason. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you want your back or neck to go out, break up with your girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
Just keep expanding out the range of influences. Yeah.
No. This is something I've seen way too many times.
Right. Yeah. Hey, don't tell me that, outside stressful instances of life don't sometimes just make your elbow hurt, because they do.
They do. Yeah.
All right. Next one comes from gentle listener Pedro.
Pedro.
He says, question for Dan and Pat from a gentle listener in Lisbon, Portugal. So hello
Awesome.
all the way out there in Portugal. Great to hear from you, Pedro. Pedro says, do you think there's a good way to incorporate kettlebell exercises into the 5-3-1 Wendler program, maybe into the assistance work section?
Yes.
I've been doing the 5-3-1 program, but I also like to work out with kettlebells, and I'm looking for a way to incorporate both, maybe in an easy strength way, covering all the fundamental human movements, ? So kind of a general question there, Dan, but maybe some.
Well, I mean, if you read Mass Made Simple, I've already done it. I mean, Mass Made Simple is based on the 5-3-1 template with high rep squats and complexes. And then we kept tweaking it until it became Mass Made Simple, because of the feedback. If you're going to do something like his program, bigger but boring, I think kettlebells are a marvelous thing to add to it. Gentle listeners, Jim's program is bench, military, deadlift, and squat variation. You in the week 1 is fives, week 2 is threes, week 1 is singles, obviously, and week 4 is a deload. And you build you build logically upon it with going forward on the last set most of the time. And because it frees you for so much time, then you can focus on some other things too. So yes, absolutely, Pedro. 5-3-1 is built for what you just said.
Okay. Next question comes from Tin.
Tin?
Tin. That's all we have. Tin. Tin. Tin has 1 kettlebell, 16 kilogram, and wants to know, would you suggest getting another 16 kilogram? Oh, I'm sorry. I answered this question. You know what? I want your feedback on this anyways. This is a repeat from a previous episode. So we'll see if Dan John gives the same answer I did. Shame on me if not. Tin wants to know, I currently have a 16 kilogram. Would you, Dan, suggest getting another 16, doubling up, or getting a 28 kilogram? Those are the options that Tin has.
Only two. My options are a 28 or doubled.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I'd go the 28 because the 16's load is too light. I mean, I wish I had the option of, again, and this repeats from an earlier point. If you're a male, the 16, the 24, and the 32 should be the first thing you do.
That's it? That's your blanket prescription then? If somebody's like,
right,
I need to get starting with kettlebells, that's what Dan John says to get.
Yeah, I think now the most perfect doubles for most people are the 20s. But so that always became the issue, Pat. So the 16, the 24, the 32, the best doubles are the 20s for most men. But after that, I would double the 24, then the 16, then the 32.
Very cool.
And then after that, now you're a kettlebeller and, go buy the 17.5, the 63.4. Whatever the hell they are now,
I get you. Okay, good. Next one is another weight related question, but with kettlebells. So this one comes from Gentle Listener Manuel. He says, how do you progress in your rep schemes when the resistance jumps are very significant? So I guess he's talking about, hey, if you only have, these kind of large jumps in kettlebell intensities, how do you progress in that?
Manuel, it's interesting. When I first started with kettlebells, I thought that was their disadvantage. And it took me a while to realize that was actually their advantage. And it made me think back to when I was young, and most barbells were fixed weight. So you'd go to a gym and you would grab the 65-pound barbell off the rack, carry it over the bench press, do a set of 5, carry the weight back, pull the 75 out, do a set of 5. And this is why I think I got so freakishly strong, is because I was doing loaded carries back and forth between the rack and the rack. This is the advice I got at my RKC. What was it, 2000 and change? And it was the idea that if you can't make the jump between the 24 and the 32 in an exercise, then you practice the 24 for your reps of the exercise, press, whatever, and use the 32 for, like, for example, I'd recommend, if you can, using 2 hands to put it up into a waiter walk, the 32, using 2 hands to get into the rack and do a rack walk, cheat press with the 32 until you master the ability to press the 32. And that to me is a good way to go about this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that's very good. Let me ask you another one that I took on a solo episode. I thought it was a really good question. And when I think about it, I'm like, I wish Dan John was here for this one. And the question was, what is the killer app of machines, of machines in the gym? And the reason I appreciated this question is sometimes in the fitness industry, you kind of get this sort of, I don't know, snobbery about machines.
Yeah.
Well, if they're not free weights, shame on you if you're using them. And I think that's often wildly unhelpful. So what does Dan John see the best?
So, when I was recovering from my first total hip, I would go into our little gym we had there on Frontera. Was it Frontera? Yeah. And I would do leg extension, leg curl. I would leg press reasonably light, shoulder press, pull down. And I think we had 7 machines in there. But the nice thing about if you have a cane, what's nice about it is that I was getting pure hypertrophy work
Mm-hmm.
with no fear. I didn't have to worry about balance. I didn't have to worry about all those other factors. I could just push.
Yes.
I could just push. So I was getting the benefits of hypertrophy work that, I mean, my body was swimming with the nutrients that we get, the hormonal cascade of Rob Wolf, whatever you want to call it, in a very safe. If something bad happened, if I felt anything in a leg extension, I would just relax and the weight would crash into a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the advantage. I still think there's great value in machine work if you need to get bigger. Machines are wonderful.
Right.
The downside is that kind of hypertrophy doesn't always carry over onto the field.
Yeah, that pretty much parallels almost exactly what I said. I said machines are a great resource for somebody who's working through recovering from
Mhm.
something or injured, right? Undoubtedly,
Recovering from
hugely valuable
age.
for that. But also, just for those who want the sort of aesthetic fine tuning, there's a reason a lot of professional bodybuilders and figure competitors use machines because it kind of lets you just focus in aesthetically in a very precise way. And like you said, Dan, like that necessarily won't transfer over to performance, but hey, it's like anything else. It's a tool, and you
Right.
understand. Okay, what can we use this tool for? What is it good for? What is it not great for? And it's just a matter of kind of just comparing and contrasting. But to just to dismiss something out of hand
Yeah.
because it's
You know,
not the thing that you do, it just seems like you're just uncritically going with the herd. Mm-hmm.
there's a negative review of Mass Made Simple on one of the sites, and the guy says professional bodybuilders use leg presses, and he doesn't even recommend them. And they're like, yeah, professional bodybuilders also play with insulin, growth hormone, massive amount of other stuff. Uh, and the other thing too is, if you've ever thrown a football to a professional bodybuilder, they would have no idea what to do with it. They would, I would prefer to have Josephine throw me passes in a football game over. And I'm not ripping on them, but that's just that, that
It's just different.
it's just different. It's, you're not going to, those guys, I mean, I've told you this 100 times. I used to be at Highland games and a guy would come up in his bodybuilding gear and be like, this poor guy has no idea. And very often they would disappear after the second or third event because, my girlfriend called, I got to leave. Yeah, you got to leave because you're getting schooled.
Awesome. All right, Dan. Well, as we wrap up here, what's coming down the pipeline over at Dan John University? What do you got cooking up for the
Well,
for the good people?
a couple things. Just sent Pavel another large thing on easy strength. Doing a workshop here in about an hour. Yeah, almost an hour. Overseas, which is nice, but it's right here, but it's overseas. Just trying to, it's a strange time right now for me because as much as I feel things have been up in the air for the past year, all of a sudden everything's starting. Now, God bless the 500,000 Americans who are no longer with us because of COVID. But as we begin to have people getting vaccinated, and I'm not there yet because of my age, I'm not old enough and I'm not important enough. But, I tested negative 3 times in the last 2 weeks because I've been exposed a couple times. As we kind of come out of this, all of a sudden now everybody they want to go right back to 2019 and say,
Yes.
Can you be here? Can you be here? Can you be here? And it's like, let's wait until we're vaccinated. Let's wait until I can fly. And so it's a weirdly crazy time because nothing's happening all the time. I'm busy with nothing happening.
That's right. Yeah, it is a weird feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm chasing around, not being busy.
But you haven't let it, and God bless you for this, Dan. You haven't let it stop you from putting out truly tremendous content, not just by being always so gracious with your time here on the podcast, but I want to, again, encourage people to go check out all the cool stuff you have on your YouTube YouTube channel, excuse me. Dan John University, just tremendous stuff. You're just a geyser, Dan, of just
so
great
I
information.
hired my nephew to organize, to put together a FAQ about it. And his first email back was, you have 1,850 videos, right? And I'm like,
what?
What? No, I thought I had like 30.
Isn't that funny how that just happens?
And you just now, obviously a lot of them are clips. There's a lot of clips.
Yeah.
a podcast has 20 questions and there's 20 clips.
Sure.
So, okay,
But
well,
still.
okay, that's fine. But it is amazing how you go from zero to hero on this kind of stuff and you don't even notice it.
Right.
When I talk to people, I want to start a blog. Well, okay. Call me after this. What did we say? You said the 7th one.
Yeah, for the podcast. I remember when I was looking at podcasts, I always like to try and figure out, okay, what's the threshold I need to pass if in order to increase the probability that I'm not going to be a complete loser, right? And that threshold seemed to be, I think, most podcasts never get past episode 7. So I was like, all right, come hell or high water, I'm at least getting past 7 episodes, right? Because that is some sort of threshold. Mm-hmm.
The only podcasts I've subscribed to, I don't think any of them have ever been over 10. It's like, God, this is so good. And I'll be in the sauna listening to it. And then I'll be like, where did this go? Well, because there's only 6. There's only 4. Mm-hmm. And they're great, but they don't last. Right. And then many podcasts wake up one day and realize, I got nothing to say, which is why this was kind of a nice episode. I mean, there was a couple of questions, and I wouldn't know, but the easy strength in the 10,000K swing. I mean, that's something I'm not going to spend. I mean, I'm not going to throw everything out today and research it, but it's got me, my little brain spinning again.
Right. Well, we can follow up with that, and Mike can follow up with us, and we always enjoy the ongoing conversation. And yeah, that reminds me. So, gentle listeners, again, let me give my petitions here. If you like what we're doing, consider subscribing, sharing, reviewing the show, and we'll get a little gift for you. I'll map out the little armor building program. We'll get Dan John's blessing. And if you email me, Pat Flynn at Chronicles of Strength, with the subject line podcast review, we will kick that your way as a thank you for supporting the show.
And let's make sure we start giving out some of them DVDs too, okay?
That's right. You know what? I will include a few of those as well. So I'll pick a few people at random who review. Everyone will get the program if you leave a review, the armor building one, but I'll pick a few just special specimens to also receive some of these.
You're a delight, and it's an honor to work with you.
Thank you, Dan. We'll see you next week.
Looking forward to it already. Take care. Bye-bye.
Adios.